medically understood.
Hey there, folks. Mark Edwards here, and this is the Ultraviolet Podcast. And today, I have the immense pleasure of being joined by one of my favorite YouTubers, and probably one of yours if you're watching this show, FD Signifier. I feel like that's all I got to say. Like, if you watch my channel, you probably already watch his. But if you don't know who he is, somehow, FD is a YouTuber who makes really engaging, very detailed, very empathetic video essays on a variety of subjects, focusing predominantly on Black culture, but also just pretty much anything, leftism, politics. Recently, he's gotten into doing stuff on the manosphere, though that arc has officially ended, and I'm very happy for him that he no longer has to directly engage with that. And we talk about all of that stuff. We talk about the debate bro thing, leftist YouTube in general, how it relates to actual on-the-ground activism and politics, and what the role of the lefty YouTuber is, and how do we grow as a community and grow that purpose, whatever it may be. We also talk about education and politics in general. It was a really fun conversation. I had an absolute blast talking to him. You will notice that there are a number of cuts in the episode, and that's because we wound up talking about stuff that is going to be in his next video, and we wanted to cut that to save it for that, because this podcast is going to come out before his next video. So if you're wondering why there's probably like 3 or 4, maybe more places where we had to pull stuff out. It's specifically for that. So get hyped for his next video. You'll notice pretty much every time we come back from one of those cuts, we're laughing or having a really good time. It's because what he was talking about was really fucking awesome. So I'm super excited for that. As far as content warnings go, we talk about racism in the LeftTube community, debate bros, that whole fucking thing. Talk about terrorism, specifically the terrorism that the United States visits on parts of the world, and just a whole bunch of other stuff. But I think those are the big ones. If any of that is going to cause you psychic damage, then you know the drill by now. I'm not going to take it personally if you skip this. For everybody else, I will see you on the other side of the jump, and I give you FD Signifier. Appreciate it. That's always super awkward where we just like stare at each other and stretch. And we both got the old man neck.
Two older burly men just.
Which I think I'm 36. I just turned 36 like a month ago. How old are you?
I'm 40.
Okay. So we're like,
we're elder statesmen in this space, which is always an interesting like thing for me to like engage with. Is just the fact that I'm in, which is. It vacillates, not vacillates, what's the word? It's familiar because I was a teacher for so long. Mm-hmm. But at this point, being like in community with young people is different.
Yeah. Like the younger lefties are like, especially online, are just like, it's amazing what they're doing. Hold on, let me go back and like introduce you. FD, thanks for coming on. And we'll like cold open, and it's a meme on my channel that I suck at these openings. But thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Been looking forward to
it. So I think actually, let's just roll with that. Like being millennials and dealing with all these youngins out here.
Yeah, with the Z's coming through and the Z's having like a whole different energy towards things. And part of me is envious of that. And part of me is also like, piteous of it. In a way that I'm still unpacking, because, aside from like, the obvious Black, issues that pertain to the left, and I guess my whole manosphere arc, which is definitely something I'm done like with direct content, but that's always going to be something that I engage with. The other thing that has really like resonated with me is, what am I doing here? Like not in some like, what am I doing here? But like, no, what is the best use of my time and energy and talent and effort? And part of it is, so I feel like the best thing is supporting the younger people with more skin in the game, more energy, more freedom, and more to lose, you
Yeah.
know? And so that's kind of a thing that I'm constantly engaging with. I tweeted something out late last night. I had a conversation the other night with a young creator that really kind of like has stuck in my gut, because the guy's only 22 years old and he's talking about changing the world. I'm like, dude, you're 22. You're supposed to suck at whatever
Yeah.
you're trying to do at 22. And
Yeah.
I wonder, like, did I understand that at 22? I probably didn't, right? But it would be even harder to like digest that at 22 now, I feel like, because you're inundated with images of people your age and younger that are changing the world, you know?
Hmm.
And so when you feel driven towards that, or maybe even when you're not driven towards that, there has to be a type of angst and, you know, there's a lot, it has to be a lot going on around that. And yeah, I don't know. I just have so many thoughts that I don't want to ramble too much without.
No,
This is
that's
going to be the bassiest voice leftist podcast ever.
right.
So we
Yeah.
got to make sure everybody gets their jollies off. Go ahead.
Yeah. Um, no, I'm actually like constantly, it's like a mixture of impressed and horrified at how like not horrified at the kids. I don't want to call them kids. I don't want to like, infantilize them.
Yeah.
But like the young, like the young folks out here who are doing this stuff. I think about how they're out here behaving, and I think about what I was like when I was their age, and I was a fucking dirtbag. Like I was like even for like other people our age. Like I know you've talked about how like our generation was pretty fucked up. But like even for other millennials, I was a fucking dirtbag, and I was just like, how are you out here having whole opinions and thoughts and like well reasoned arguments and shit when like when I was
Yeah.
your age, I was like fucking. I don't want to talk about what I was doing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not too far from that. You know what I'm saying? Like I had my the reason why I have such passion around this manosphere, stuff is because I recognize how easily I would have fell into it
Yeah.
20 years ago, and it's, so there's that, right? There's maybe a survivor's guilt, a desire to atone for past transgressions. But then like, I had started to like, didn't realize that, but I started to lean into doomerism in the last, since Trump got elected. I was like, fuck, well, we're going to move, baby. We're going to move out the country and do our best with these babies and just like see what happens. And so, but as I started making content and like doing different types of work and engaging with more explicitly leftist people, especially Black people on my end, I was like, okay, doomerism is very much privilege, and it's I need not let that be my guiding my guiding moral compass. And then it's easier when I see a St. Andrew, who's like 20.
Yeah. That dude's so fucking smart. Like,
right.
He makes me mad. Like I was talking to that cat and I'm like, so what's your, like, are you going to college? And it's like last year. He's like, oh, I'm about to graduate with a BA. I'm like, you're fucking 5, man. What are you doing? Right. I'm like, how are you out here with whole ass formed opinions and like can cite authors that I've never even read?
Right. People I've never heard of. Like, I'm the smart one. You're the okay. Never mind. What is your next video about? This thing, solar punk. Never even heard of it. Oh shit! Now I want it forever. Like it's wild. Like him. Sophie from Mars.
Yeah.
Like so many of these folks are in their early 20s to mid 20s, and so the thing I've settled on is that for a lot of them, the one thing that has I'm formulating it around a video I'm planning about being an older millennial, which is, especially like you're closer to my age. We were the last probably children born that had no reason to be skeptical of the system going into like young adulthood.
Yeah.
Right. Like all throughout our youth, childhood, teenage years, young adulthood, there was no like, unless you were, of course, if you were like at the bottom of the food chain,
Yeah.
right? Then you can recognize it. You have enough connective tissue with the problems of the world, and you can get it. But overall, the presentation, the facade of capitalism works, the American dream is real. You didn't have a lot of reason to doubt that growing up. And I think for a lot of us, it came into the veneer was pulled back in our early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you have to course correct and readjust. And we're all doing that. And there's a lot to that. Versus the Z's have had no reason to buy in, pretty much from middle school on, if not younger. And the alphas, I don't even know what I'm gonna do with my kids. Like I be telling my kids, I don't care what grades you get, like do what you gotta do. So like I think that is part of it, that they have developed a critical lens earlier out of necessity, you know. And we're reaping the benefits of that, but it's also like, I pity what that has had to. I pity that loss of innocence in a way.
Yeah. And like, even like when you just said, like, if you're at the bottom of the barrel, you have some level of awareness of that. Like, because I grew up real poor and like in some pretty shitty places, but I didn't have a systemic analysis. Like, I knew my life was fucked up. I knew the lives of the people that I ran with were fucked up, right? Like, just very obviously it was. But it wasn't until I got into my 20s and like I think like it was like the Wall Street crash, like the
Occupy Wall Street.
Yeah, and like the housing bubble collapse,
housing bubble stuff. Yeah,
like, and I started actually developing like, oh, there are other people in other parts of this country that did that, and like that's when I developed like a systemic analysis. Whereas if you're a Zoomer growing up in shitty conditions, you instantly know why. Like,
right.
You don't have to wonder, like, is this just me? Is this just my family? Is this my community? No, it's everybody.
Yeah.
Like, and not only do you know it's everybody, you have a reading list to explain why. And like, I don't know what that does to a kid, but I don't know how. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's one part of it is us as being older, maybe just divesting from the parts of the system that we bought into as children. And there's the one thing I try to hold space for with anybody, because I guess I've made a name for myself for being a different type of intersectional than people are used to. Maybe I haven't got much criticism for it online, but it was something I remember struggling with in grad school, because grad school is very much an industrial complex, right? Academics. And so I would find myself, partially my fault, not knowing what the fuck I was doing sometimes, but also I think just pushing at people's comfort zones and saying, hey, I want to talk about like poor white guys in rural America that call me the N-word on Call of Duty. There's something interesting there that's missing. And so when I started applying an intersectional lens to it, it made the analysis really good, but also like certain people uncomfortable. But I say that to say, in doing that, I've learned to hold space for people divesting from problematic and toxic worldviews and experiences more than I think others are comfortable with, which I also respect. And giving grace to myself for the same thing. Like I remember being in high school during the Clinton years. Like, and it seemed like, oh, this is gravy. Like, this is perfect. What? I can go work for a .com and make $1 million by the time I'm 25. Like it's shit like that. And then Columbine happened my junior year. And that was probably the first like bubble burst moment. And so like part of me longs for that neoliberal image of the world. That I can get out there, make a bunch of money, live happily and fabulously, and everything's fine. Because the thing I've had to learn about neoliberalism, especially from an African-American standpoint, is you're told how great this is, and then from a black standpoint, how unlikely it is that you'll have it. And so when you get close to getting it, you're like, oh my God, it's right there. I can have this. Are you serious? And then, as you know, I live in Atlanta. So like Atlanta is relatively well known for being, I'll just say, the home of the black bourgeoisie. I've like, you can maneuver through all aspects of socioeconomic statuses, or work worlds or whatever in Atlanta, and never have to talk to a white person if you want. And so that's beautiful on one end, because it's nice to see black folks with a little money that's not struggling. But when you sit back, you recognize how much of that is the reproduction of the same exploitative practices. It's, Jay-Z doing a NFT program in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are you doing? So I say all to say, I think part of it is just wanting to like be here for these young people, to atone for the way I participated in the systems that harmed them and me. And then also like, I think that's it. I think it's those two things, like atonement and like support, because they're fucking doing some dope shit. And, I have hope, I have belief.
Yeah. I think they're doing good shit. I'm just continuously impressed with how together they are and how clear-headed. And I mean, like you young people are going to young people, right? You're going to step up. And like, if I had to level a criticism at all these young creators, I think it would be number one, the one that you started with, which is be easy on yourself. And my second would be maybe be a little easier on each other.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of like viciousness that's embedded in that, like that very youthful, exuberant, like, I know how this is and I want to spread that comes with a darker side of, well, if you're not 100% on board with the way I'm trying to do things, you're my enemy kind of vibe. And I would like to see a little less of the all or nothing back and forth that I sometimes see. The folks that I tend to follow don't participate in that too much, but it's definitely present in the broader community of like younger lefty creators.
Yeah, there's the calling out versus calling in, and then there's also like the being willing to coexist amicably in different spaces.
Yeah,
which is like what I've leaned into with the whole debate bro stuff. Like, I'm not a fan of, and we would say debate bros are talking about essentially 3.5 people, 2.5 people
that matter. Yeah,
that
the rest
matter,
of them are just like hangers on, and I like to call them beard oilers.
Beard oilers, and the reason why they're not as big, like I've done a few things with Shark Zero, right? Shark 300. I always mess up his name. I'll just call him Shark. Like, the reason why Shark isn't as big as his peers is because he's less vitriolic and toxic. You know what I'm saying? I would say. And then Shark's had some takes that I'm like, ooh, especially recently. But like overall, I'm fine with coexisting with Shark, with connecting with him in ways that benefit us, my audience, his audience, and then also like letting him do his thing over there. But like I feel like there's a desire, there's a persistent desire. There's persistent desire, and there's clout and money to be gained in the classic infighting stuff. In the leftist drama, the tube drama. I if I had my way, nobody else would make another anti-debate bro video. Not that I don't agree with the sentiment that comes out of them, but I've found I've just gotten so exhausted by the problem when it doesn't have to. So obviously, like, certain situations still have not been rectified, right? Without going in too deep, and and accountability has not been done. But the thing that people don't understand about accountability, I feel like maybe I got this from Julesy, is that accountability comes with consent, and I think that's something that like younger lefties and people who are getting their voice online for the first time don't understand is that you have to consent to being held accountable.
Yeah. If you don't, then it's just vengeance.
Right. And then what are you doing it for? And so, not that vengeance isn't at least a thing that feels good at times, but that sense of acknowledgement that that's what it is, I think would change the fervor that some people have towards, drama and, the Twitter drag, the pile on, etc. And like, if we are clear, and it's pretty clear with certain folks in different leftist circles, that some people are not going to consent to being held accountable to how they've been wrong or done wrong in a situation. And so at that point, I am moving on to other things. Because, and that also, that's easier for me to say, because one thing I got from talking to this young cat is my identity is much less online than I think some young people, especially the younger disease, because like being online started with Facebook for me in my 20s, in my mid 20s, versus for them Tumblr in like middle school. Yeah. And so like it's a lot easier for me to, like, I tweet out every month or every once in a while, remember that you're in an algorithmic bubble, so like people will hopefully detach, but like detaching is cutting off a limb for people that have been online since they were children. And so, it's just, there's a lot of complexity in that. So I try to hold space for people, being vitriolic and seeking vengeance when I'm like, just let it alone,
Yeah. And then like I think the other, the part of that is probably just, there's a lot of community overlap. And it is, if you are getting piled on by somebody who the fans of whom are also your fans, and it turns into this like inter-community drama, that I think becomes harder to ignore if there's people are pushing you in one direction or the other. That's a whole thing. But yeah, I tend to agree. Like I went on my whole like anti-debate bro arc like a year ago.
You were early in the game.
Well, it was right around the time they all came after Professor Flowers, and that whole thing,
which I think is a turning point for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that's the irony is that was my introduction to them.
I mean, it's a decent introduction, to be honest.
It was pretty emblematic of the problem. I never forget. So I made a video. I've hidden it now because I don't feel good about it anymore. But I made a video that briefly showed an image of Vosh. And it was just because I had watched enough Vosh at that point to know that I didn't like Vosh's content. I didn't even know I didn't like Vosh yet. I was just like, this isn't content for me. And that was like the statement I made. And it was so funny because the next time he came to my attention was the nonsense, not even with Professor Flowers, but with St. Andrew.
Yeah.
And that was my first indication, like, oh, there's a problem here. And then after that, I was like, I'm done. And then, the Flower stuff was kind of like, okay, things need to be said. And everybody and that's kind of, and after that, I was like, okay, there's nothing else to be done here really. Because things that needed to be said were said. Accountability was not had.
Yeah.
And it still has not been had because, you learn that there's like people who just watch Vosh or other debate bros like they watch, I don't know, Game of Thrones or any other problematic media, right? Which is fine, overall. Like I hold space for that. Like you can't always change what entertains you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so, and I always look at this first as entertainment. So it's like, that is what it is. And then there's the diehards who have built that strong parasocial bond And then there's also the way that many of those creators weaponize their fans a lot differently and a lot more proactively to attack and harass other people because they know that's part of the reason why they're there. And so I immediately after Break Bread, well, before Break Bread, kept getting people saying, go talk to Vosh, debate Vosh, etc. And I've been getting that literally. I had to mute Vosh's name on my channel. And so the irony is, even though like I've never rocked with Vosh ever since that Professor Flower stuff, is that like Vosh, to give him credit, has never really bothered me that much, like specifically. But his fans, his fans are legion and they're everywhere.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a whole like cult of personality thing that goes on there where, on the one hand, right, like if I were to try to be like really empathetic, right, and try to put myself in his shoes, let's say that there's somebody who I disagree with, but I have like a certain amount of respect for, which I think is, from what I know of Vosh, I pretty much quit following him like a year ago. But like from what I've seen of him discussing you, I think that's probably how he feels about you. Is he's like, kind of fuck this guy, but like, I respect him enough that I'm not going to go after him pretty hard.
Right.
But he has to know that like his fans come after you, and like at what point do you have a responsibility to say, hey, stop this, versus, how many times do I have to tell y'all to stop being shitty? Like, and then do you think, well, if the people that follow me, who I continuously tell not to be shitty, are continuously shitty, how much responsibility do I have for building a house where that seems appropriate?
Right.
And then, which, I've also heard Vosh tell his fans to go after people. So
yeah, that's the thing. That's the problem is I don't think there's, from what I've observed, Vosh, Destiny, to a lesser extent, Xander Hall.
That's my favorite turn of phrase. I actually think that should be his title. Is
yes, to a lesser extent Xander Hall. They know who their fans are and how they work. And within community, they just kind of build narratives.
Yeah.
And that narrative becomes the truth, And so like, if you really want to be critical, you have to wade through all these narratives of nonsense and half truths. And then they'll just build new ones,
Yeah.
And like, you can't really penetrate that. It's very cult like. It's similar energy like I've argued with flat earthers before, and like they're just axioms. Professor Flowers is a black neo-Nazi. Like there's so much evidence that's not the case, but they just kind of repeat that and it becomes the truth. The one that annoys me the most is that Break Bread is the anti-debate bro video when I talk about them of all of 10 minutes in an hour and 40-minute video.
Yeah.
And it's only to provide an example of the community-based problem. And so that's just the stuff I know of. Of course, I'm sure there's plenty more. And it's just, but regardless, right, to not get caught up in airing grievances.
Yeah.
I will give, because I've been there, I will give credence. I'm not of the mind that what they do is completely not of value, well, yeah, I guess that's it. Because I watched Ian Danskin dropped the video this morning. I got through half of it before I had to do other things.
I still had to watch that. Yeah,
it's an awesome thing in that it is the perfect video about race for white people, made by a white person. And to me, that's a thing that's missing from all progressive leftist movements, is like explicit engagement with whiteness, both from a racial framework building, but also like understanding that in community, in like doing this work. And so I appreciate that because I don't want to have to make that video. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to have to do that work. I don't want to go on 4chan and de-radicalize, 15-year-old neo-Nazis.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like those guys do, and they're going to be better at it than I am because they know all the memes. It would just be nice if their praxis in that was more thorough. You know?
I think my biggest critique of that whole ecosystem, and I'm a big proponent of, if we're gonna go after somebody like Debate Bros, we should have very specific critiques that are grounded in truth. Like, I'm not a big fan. Like, Vosh attracts a lot of. You just type his name into Twitter and see the shit people say about him. That's just blatantly not true.
Right.
Just obviously not true, just because they're mad, right? And I get the impulse to do that, but
Yeah.
I think we need, particularly for somebody who has a meme within his own community that is Vosh bad.
Yeah.
If you make hyperbolic claims about him that are demonstrably not true, he gets to dismiss all criticism.
All criticism.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So we should keep our critiques pointed. I will say I used to spend, I actually was like a kind of like a halfway fan of Vosh for a little while. Like, I would put him on in the background because, especially during the election, it was like there aren't a whole lot of like socialists who are doing election coverage. So it was like, this is pretty decent. And if he'd stayed doing that, it would have been dope. Like, I think that's really his lane. Like, is if you want to be like the more to the left version of Kyle Galinsky, I think Vosh slots in really well there.
Yeah.
Particularly for like the Zoomer crowd. But I spent some time in his Discord, and I don't think they have it anymore. I don't know if it's because it ran into problems that I'm going to talk about.
So much of the Vosh bad stuff comes from his Discord.
Yeah.
So I would imagine he realized that was a liability. I have empathy. Finish what you're saying, and then like I'm going to go into my empathy. So
at one point they had like several channels that were specifically for de-radicalization. And if you came into the Discord saying some Nazi shit, you got banned from the main Discord and moved over into those. And until you demonstrated that you were no longer saying Nazi shit, you wouldn't be let into the other one. And people actually did put in work to de-radicalize people. I don't know if it was successful based on the way that Discord is currently today. I would argue probably not.
Right.
But they made an effort to do it. And what concerns me about that, and I think that's evidence to kind of a halfway thesis that I have, is that work is really fucking messy, and the failures are a lot more frequent than the successes, and it is absolutely not something that should be done in any way that is connected to a public figure personality who's primarily an entertainer.
Right.
If you're genuinely serious about that, you should have a private Discord separate from your entertainment thing.
Yeah. So and that gets into praxis, you know, which is lacking on LeftTube, BreadTube, and just the online left in general. Because my critique that I wish would have came across more in Break Bread is that the thing that kept me from moving left earlier in life, among several things, right? Like, not to, it was just this one thing. Like, then I sound like them. One of the things that was a major thing for me was recognizing how being a leftist was an explicit identity for most white leftists.
Yeah.
And that was easy. For most Black people, I think that is easy to identify. You know what I'm saying? It's easy to kind of to like your antenna goes up. You know, a confession I've made multiple times. I didn't support Bernie Sanders in 2016. And it was because whenever I talked to a white person about Bernie Sanders, that alarm went off. This is a person that, and then also Bernie Sanders doesn't know anything about Black people. Doesn't like, it's cute and all. I appreciate the effort. I don't trust you. I don't trust your intentions. I don't trust your efficacy on the grand scale of like what's going on. So I'm going to pick the devil I know over the devil I don't, which is that's a shitty thing in general. You know, and I regret it. Like, to be clear, I regret not supporting Bernie Sanders. The long short of it is that aspect of identifying as a leftist kind of corrodes being a leftist, if that makes sense. Because so much of the things that we're annoyed by from the online left are mostly born out of the need to signal your leftist nature.
Yeah.
And to create community borders in groups and out groups. So we have the debate bros, we have the video essayists, we have the prestige leftist content creators. You know what I'm saying? We have the moderates that float in and out, so on. And so we have those who are doing explicit praxis and like organizing, and their content's built around that. Like, so there's this cloud, right, of nebulous people, this nebulous cloud. And if we could keep those boundaries, but also still organize and communicate better within them.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't think there's a need for me to do a stream with St. Andrew. You know what I'm saying? Of course I will one day, but like St. Andrew's doing like explicit leftist ideation, developing develop increasing knowledge. And I'm like, Lauryn Hill is cool. You know what I'm saying? And like there's a connectivity there, but there's also like, I don't want him to be a YouTuber. You know, I don't want St. Andrew to become a YouTuber guy. I want him to do exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
I kind of started to ramble there, but you about to say something.
Well, I was gonna say that particularly with like the Bernie Sanders thing, I think that was an opportunity for specifically like white leftists to say, you know, this guy is weak on this, and we need to address that and talk about that. And, you know, what I saw was you probably saw much more of this than I did and got it a lot worse. But
low information voters
is
it's like, oh, okay, shit.
Yeah, it's the response to black folks being like, I'm not really sure about this Bernie dude, wasn't, well, why do you feel that way? Oh, you know what? That's a good point. Here, like, let's unpack that. Let's figure this out. Hey, maybe this is why I think, you know, you should support him in spite of that, or you're right, this is something we should work on and like be in a community effort kind of thing. It was, here's 5 paragraphs about why you're a class traitor and like, drop your identity politics, and like 50 links to Kyle Kalinske videos. And it's just like, it was not good, right? It was not a good look.
No.
And I think you're absolutely right that that particularly white leftists will use their leftism as a signifier.
You said the thing.
to project like I'm one of the good ones, basically. Right. And very frequently you're not. Like, I have this whole fucking thing with like declared allyship, like that I'm really annoyed by. Like,
definitely.
Like allyship is not something that you personally get to say. It is an inter-community conversation that is had about you. So I just get annoyed by self-declared allyship because that's just a thing that other people say about you to other people within their group.
Right.
It's not a thing that you get to self-declare. Like, it's essentially just worthless.
That's one of the reasons I got a little flack on this in a video. I don't call myself a feminist, and it's not because I don't identify with being a feminist. It's because it doesn't take, especially if you're a millennial, it doesn't take much to think about how often dudes that call themselves feminists end up being some of the worst dudes. Yeah. And you also want to be, I'm super careful because I feel like such a guest. I'm maybe to a point of neurosis, wanting to be responsible with like my platform and the blessing of being able to do this for work. So it's like, it's so easy to get clout being a branding myself with feminism. You know what I'm saying? Like that would be a huge, like I could be on MSNBC or, you know what I'm saying, whatever, like doing really easy, like stuff like that. And I prefer that people identify me with that based on my actual work. Because of those reasons, because then it becomes a branding aesthetic that I'm worried about maintaining versus do my ethics line up as much as possible, you know?
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to talk about, semi-pivoting from the debate bro stuff, is also empathizing with like the headspace you have to be in for that type of stuff. There was the last like time I watched Vosh was not long after the Noah debacle.
Yeah.
And one thing that occurred to me as I was watching is that the guy looked bad in that moment. not like, oh, his arguments didn't line up, and more so in he seemed tired, because I feel like that was also right after ContraPoint's drama. And he's a guy that just stays in drama, right? And so I thought to myself, man, mental health speaking, this can't be healthy.
Yeah.
To be this persistently in turmoil. I do that with Hassan in my head, because Hassan's drama is slightly less, not slightly, it's much less overtly based on his like pathological toxic behavior, and more so on the role he's taken up of like being constantly online. Like, you can't be constantly online and not fuck up and, piss people off.
Yeah.
And so, like, when that's your job and your persona and you like live it, I don't know how to do that. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how people can operate that connected to a volatile like sense of being,
Yeah, like, so when I initially set out to make like video essays, and then like COVID happened and I didn't have time to research at work anymore. And I was like, yeah, I'll do this like takedown streamer thing. Let's see how that feels. And I did like 2 of them, and it made me feel like garbage. I was like I feel like shit when I'm doing it. It's like, it feels bad.
Yeah.
It feels good, but it feels bad. Like the good bit, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I've
and
done
then,
that like 2 or 3 times on a live, and then like deleted the live.
so it's bad for your soul. Like, and like, maybe there's somebody out there who does it and can distance himself from it enough that, like, I think Hassan probably has found like that happy balance, even though not necessarily with his entire online presence, but just with that like dunking and like distancing himself from that internal turmoil and vitriol. But yeah, I think a lot of what that is, like, if we're gonna like pathologize it, is it's basically kayfabe, right? Kayfabe.
Yeah.
And a lot of what happens is you spend that much time in character that you become the character, and there's not like a difference. Like, there's very little difference between like the stage and the back of the house for those cats, and I think that's a lot of what's going on.
Yeah,
It's just really
that has to be
simple.
Yeah, that has to be stressful and hard to do. And like, I wonder. Yeah, I just wonder how much longer that can happen for some folks. But I'm also older, and like, for some of these guys came, like, I couldn't even stream just to play video games. I don't know how they do that. So like, I may be talking completely out of my ass, like it's nothing to them to do it. But like, the idea of, like, people say you should stream, because I played Tekken and I played at a pretty high level. And like, you should Tekken stream. Like, dude, if I stream while playing Tekken, because I've tried it before, I will just lose most of my matches or be really boring, because I'm not going to talk.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So to be able to split your attention span like that, hell, I don't like sitting in this chair too long. It makes my back hurt. It makes my stomach feel weird.
Yeah.
We're getting into boomer.
Yeah. Get the icy hot patches and some fucking Tiger Balm, and
right.
I get my like upstairs ibuprofen. I did a stream the other night, like 3 a.m, because I was just trying to stay up to get off of a night shift schedule, because I like quit my job. And so I'm trying to get like back on like a normie sleep wake cycle. So I was like, I'll just stay up for like 36 hours and just reset. And I wound up playing Doom. And I was like, I did it for like 4, maybe like 2-3 hours even. And like Noah came in the chat, and
I saw that. Yeah,
we were doing like a bit, and I was just like, fuck it, I just put on body armor and streamed Doom. And it just I was like full LARP. But yeah, it's exhausting. Like, I don't know how people do that shit for like tired after 2 hours, and there was only one person in my chat.
yeah. But I respect and that's kind of the thing. If we're going to like force congenial, we're going to end on positivity. I respect that I can't do that. I don't want to do that. And that still serves a purpose. So you do that.
Yeah.
And if you could, just like tell your fans to leave me alone.
Well, I actually, I want
Except for
to,
Hassan. Hassan, I fucks with
yeah.
Hassan despite, obvious criticisms. Because I think, and this is kind of another thing I've been thinking about is, so one thing that really hit me as I've grown, especially during my manosphere arc, because somehow my manosphere arc introduced me to a lot more Black conservatives. I'm not sure why that had that function, but it had that function. And I think Black people are more used to engaging with each other across political lines. No, maybe not more used to, but there's a difference in the way it's done. Like I feel like a lot of, and you can feel free to tell me wrong, but I feel like a lot of like, your white liberals and leftists and conservatives, like Thanksgiving is really tense. That's the meme, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't really talk to most of like the white liberals I know from like, my kids' school and whatnot. They hate their relatives from Jump a Bump, Georgia. Whereas like, aside from a few like conflicts within family, like I still connect regularly with family members and friends who I have very different political ideologies from. And it's, I don't know, it's more communal. And so what happens is I have a lot of Black conservatives that watch me regularly now. I'm fine. And I'm like, okay, how do I like maximize that effect? And I started like really thinking about like, okay, what happened to the Black left? What happened to the Black socialism? Then T1J made his video, and then it really sparked a bigger dive. And that was all preamble to point out how the thing that is occurring to me that I don't think has been brought up enough in the online left is that communism and socialism were very normal, like mainstream political identities and ideologies until the 80s.
Yeah.
And it was in the 80s that they became like extreme and fringe. And that's such a huge blow like that. Because now you have a whole generation, me and you, that grew up thinking communism was evil, grew up thinking socialism is evil, grew up thinking all these other things when Martin Luther King was a socialist.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like, what do you mean Martin Luther King was a socialist? I had never heard that until the last couple of years.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I went through a whole Black childhood. Martin Luther King every February. Martin Luther King paintings up in the walls of my house, my grandma's house, etc. And never did it come up that he was a socialist. And so that's very intentional. That's Ronald Reagan. That kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Sanitize his image to make it a product, essentially. And so I think to myself, okay, we have a whole generation that is more open to the left and leftist ideology for the first time in essentially 30 years, 30, 40 years. So we need to activate on that. And that is actually why I am such a big Hassan fan, despite, criticisms, because what Hassan does that, the other debate bros I think are incapable of doing, to be honest, is he is a charismatic and interesting enough guy, character or not, that he doesn't have to build the big brain cult of personality. People just kind of like him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And what that does is it pulls socialism, for better or worse, it pulls socialism out of being this fringe, very white, not say, no, let me be clear, let me be safer in my language. Just this fringe, very white kind of outlier concept and identity to a thing a regular guy can be and believe in. And I think that's more valuable than people are aware of, or maybe even want to admit. I don't know. I maybe, feel free to push back, and whoever's watching, feel free to, hit the chat and say, no, FD, you're wrong. Because I'm a baby leftist myself. But go ahead.
I would actually push back on the communism and socialism being very white thing, because I know that most rank and file, like I don't know about in the U.S. specifically, but I know like the for all of its problems, the Canadian Communist Party, most of its rank and file members are Black or Indigenous.
Mm.
And that's generally true in America too. Like when you, when I went to like, if I go to like protests or something,
Yeah.
most of like the actual orgs, like that are like based in the community that are doing the organizing, are largely made up of Black folks.
Yeah.
Leftism in America isn't predominantly white. The popular bits are predominantly white.
Right.
And that is a tale as old as fucking time. Like, I think for all the same reasons that, you know, Macklemore was popular. Like it's that shit all over again.
Yeah.
So, but I actually, and maybe this is a good spot to get into like something I know that you wanted to talk about, which is like the future of this bubble that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Which I really, really liked your video, Breaking Bread or Break Bread. I can't remember the title.
Break bread. Everybody else, I think it's just Breaking Bad. I didn't think about when I made it, because I put we'll save that for later when we get self-indulgent about content. But go ahead.
I think that one of the things that you mentioned in that video is there's this old guard of breadtube that was basically talking about Black people, about Indigenous people, about trans people, and it was largely, you know, people that look like me. Maybe not as good looking, but you know, they came close.
Within the vein, yeah.
And now we're starting to see this rise of like Black and Indigenous and trans YouTube. They're smaller, but they're making headway, and it's always been there, but now it's becoming more and more popular, probably because YouTube has discovered that it's profitable.
Yeah.
But it's still becoming more and more popular nonetheless. And one of the reasons that I wanted to do a talk show in particular is because I don't really have a lot of shit to say about the stuff that's important, but there are people who do, and I want to talk to them, and like I want to give space for people to talk about their stuff and direct people to other content creators. That's kind of like that's sort of what I see my role in that bubble to be. And I don't know, like what thoughts do you have about like that whole phenomenon?
Yeah. So I think the core is, at least for me, like I think we like I've alluded to earlier, I think we can all serve various functions. And I think the core for me is, how do we increase the base? You know, like I think one thing that happens with the online left stuff is we don't realize, and this is the reason why I point this out, we don't realize how small we are and how insulated we are in our own bubbles as leftists. And so when a ridiculous thing happens, or a ridiculous take becomes normalized, we're shocked sometimes when we shouldn't be. And my thing is, okay, so how do we increase the size of our bubble? How do we take advantage of people who are entering into political discourse to, you know, pull them in, to call them in, and, you know, they provide energy, resources, you know, and power to the movement. And that's we're useful, me in particular, you know, other creators, in that we are these charismatic figures that help create a lane for that to happen. You know, so like I know from at least my DMs and my watch data, whatever, that I've probably moved a chunk of young Black men further left than, you know, H Bomber guy would have. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so the results of that may not be immediate, but like if we can continue to harness and build from that, then who knows what that means a decade from now, when those teenage guys are in their, you know, mid to late 20s. And because, you know, without getting too much more monitored by the CIA, you know, because we're talking about drastic social change is our goal.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, obviously we don't think that change should come through serious social upheaval, right? But if it does come through progressive and spontaneous organizing is going to have numbers, and it's going to have people who are invested, people who can visualize what it looks like, which means it's going to have, scholars, activists, brand ambassadors, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's going to have a lot of different types of people. And what I want most from breadtube is for like that to be more of a prime directive between all of us is, and I think that maybe would reduce infighting, is that, hey, we get it. Like, to give props to a debate streamer, because I don't know their pronouns, but Conure, who refers to themselves as a femboy.
Conyers, he, him, I believe.
Is Conure he, him?
I think so.
I'm going to go with they until further notice. Dude, actually, just look it up. It's easy enough to do.
Don't have it on there. Any all.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So Conure did a video in the middle of the Noah stuff that I thought was, obviously I would disagree with some points, but I was like, yeah, this is it. This is what we're doing. We're popularizing an ideology that has literally been exterminated in mainstream discourse over the last 30, 40 years now. And so we kind of need to start there, or better yet, us in front of screens with platforms. Our core purpose should be spreading this news, creating, like beacons and like directions through which we say, hey, go here if you want to do this, go there if you want to do that, and pulling more energy into the movement. And so I think if we understood that, there would be less drama, but that also might be my boomerness speaking.
Well, I mean, maybe it's my boomerness as well, but like I vibe with that so fucking hard. I think I've said something that is similar to that in like half the shows I've done, which is my goal. Like there are 3 communists in America, right? And like it's just there's like 2 of us, right? Like it's just and you look at this flaming dumpster fire that is leftist Twitter, and you would think that, number one, you would think we have a bigger presence than we actually do in the broader political discourse,
right?
And 2, you would think that. So I did an interview with Melody from A World to Win that will come out after this. Sorry, Melody, I'm bumping you for FDs so that I'll get more subscribers to send to you when your interview comes out. So I'm doing you a favor. But everybody go check her out too, as well as everybody else that we've discussed. Links in the down there part. But one of the things that we talked about, she's a Marxist-Leninist, and is this whole like tanky versus anarchy nonsense. And it's just like, I can tell me you've never been to a protest or like an organizing event without telling me you've never been to one. Like, granted, book fairs are different. People do wild shit there. But like when it comes to like actually like meeting the resistance of the state and doing real shit, that goes away. Like it's that Orwell quote.
It does if the people there, like, I don't know, maybe I talked to...
it should. Yeah, that's a better way to say it.
I think maybe it was Ian Danskin, because me and him in separate spaces participated in Occupy Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, to be very clear, I was very peripheral because I don't want people I don't want to oversell my credentials, my street cred. But I remember in my dalliance that thinking it wasn't going to go well because there was no cohesion between the variety of people organizing and trying to do stuff, partially because everybody was white. This is my perception. It was too white. And they did it in Atlanta. They did it at Woodruff Park, which is a homeless beacon. A lot of homeless, unhoused people hang out there, play chess. There's services that happen there. And like these people were coming from whatever suburb of Atlanta, and had never engaged in that type of like direct contact with, people in need. And so it was this huge thing of people not understanding you don't just, plop your stuff in the middle of a homeless compound and be like, yeah, we're all here to get along and do stuff. It's like, motherfuckers, I have, serious issues, and you're in my space and you're throwing off my whole vibe.
Yeah.
And then Ian was telling me about, I think maybe it was Oakland, that had like the most successful and longest standing Occupy activity. I'm fucking up this story. The long and short of it is the organizing helps lower the temperature and lower the volume on the identity politics of being a leftist. I'm an anarchist, I'm a Leninist, I'm a SOCNIM, all that stuff. Like that is, I think, a very online left thing versus one of the things that brought me left was doing work with actual people, doing work for people. I hadn't read, like I'd read a little bit, right? But like more so it was doing a project where I had to interview and work with homeless youth. I was like, okay, these kids are letting me know that the system doesn't fucking work. What can we do about it? When I did anti-sex trafficking work, and like, I did it with a bunch of liberals and a handful of conservatives because the people, these young girls, like escaping from pimps, did not give a fuck who I cited, as my influence for saving their lives. They just wanted to escape their pimps. And so I think that happens when people organize and get in front of, like, on the front lines a little bit more of direct action. And I just wish there was a button to make that easier,
Yeah, like ideology tends to or should fall away when you're confronting like real shit, like when you're actually doing shit.
Yeah.
Like that's not the time or the place to hash out which dead person who wrote some shit is right. Like that's not the time for that argument. There's material change that should be superseded. Now, not to dismiss disagreements, like there are fundamental disagreements between different ideologies and yada, yada, yada.
Let's get there when we have all, like, once we get all the chips, then we'll fight over whose chip goes where. But right now we have, like, we're the small hand at the poker table.
Yeah. Which brings me to, like, what is the point of this, right? Where does it fit in? And I don't know, like, I think you've said it multiple times, and I'll add on to it. This is entertainment. This is not activism. I also don't want to oversell my activist credentials. Like, I've been to a handful of protests. I was not like a big time organizer or anything, but like this isn't that, right? This is passive entertainment. And something you said in that interview that you did with BP and Non-Compete and Luna was the goal of this is to move the needle culturally slightly left. And I think that's important. That's very important. Culture matters. Yeah. My goal is not to turn everybody into an anarchist or a communist. My goal is to take whoever is watching the show and move them slightly to the left and plug people into the slots where they're going to be effective, right? Like I would never try to get somebody who's canvassing for Bernie to go like burn down a police station, right? Like, I'm not going to get like the kids who are running. I don't want to infantilize. I don't want to get the people that are running Food Not Bombs to canvass for Bernie. Right. And like, those are different sorts of people, and they're not going to be the other type of person. And I think we need to make space for different. The right does not do that type of infighting where they're like, you have to be all in all the time and, be as hard as you possibly can be. Yeah. We do
People
that.
Will literally support the right to the detriment of their individual. Like I have a section in my next video about the log cabin Republicans. And it's like, like clearly you are not a part of the crew but they don't care because they're aligned to that power structure and ideology over anything, even the self.
Yeah.
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, no, it's just they make space for various differences of opinion and levels of, let's call it, severity in their funnel, because they understand that it doesn't matter where you come into that funnel as long as you come in, and they'll move you further down, and that propagates through the culture, and that has echoes and ripple effects.
Right.
And I don't want to say we need to copy them, but we need to learn from that, and we need to create a space where if you're a liberal who really loves fucking Hillary Clinton, you can still come in and find something, at least on the periphery, that like speaks to you. Like, maybe I'm not going to get you to say abolish the police, but like maybe I can get you to be a yes in my backyard for like affordable housing, right? Like we can move you in some way. And I think
there's a spot for you.
Yeah.
And as long as we can have a standard, right?
Yeah.
If we can have, and that's kind of the problem is the things that are comfortable for me. So one of my biggest conflicts is my conflicting feelings about Barack Obama, right?
Yeah.
I did 2 whole videos on it. And, you know, so Barack Obama's biggest piece of his infamy is the freaking drone strikes, right? And so it's like, I don't want to denigrate what that means for people, how that is a act of war and an act of terrorism. But I also want people to know that, hey, I can get my whole, like, I can get 70 boomers to support insert thing here if you just let me talk about Barack Obama this one time. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, I don't know. And the thing is, that's an easier line. That's a line from that I can put in the sand very comfortably. But maybe, you know, we don't have much in the way of somebody did a breadtube so Western video the other day to plug here that I thought was, you know, really interesting. But basically, like, that's easy for me as a person in the Imperial Corps to pontificate on when somebody who's seen those bombs hit is like, motherfucker, you are out your mind if you think I'm going to let you, you know, not excoriate Barack Obama in the video. So it's and that's why I'm so big on grace, giving grace to people's intentions, calling in versus calling out, and then also allowing for specialization with standards.
Yeah.
You know, but that's maybe again, I also am open to the idea that this is completely wrong.
So I think it's, I don't want to say it's intractable because that's doomery, but like I think it's a very difficult problem, right? Like, how do you let's just take that example, right? Like of Barack Obama. And I say, I'm going to talk about this guy in a way that is productive and maybe moves people left. And I know that that's going to have results because there's an entire generation of people who have that man's face on a plate in their kitchen, right? Like, you know, he's well loved by people that I want to reach. And I'm going to make note of this problem that he has and many other problems. But I'm trying to like talk about this in a way that's productive. And then the person who is the recipient of the absolutely horrific violence that you noted as a problem has a right to be angry about that in a way that, like, if I were in their shoes, I'd probably be addressing that in ways that I can't say on YouTube now that I'm monetized. Like, you know, like that's, and I don't know that I've been kind of like, this might be dumb, but I've been like sort of forming this idea in my head of what I think of as like mutually antagonistic solidarity, where it's like we're never going to all get along. There's always going to be some segment of the left that hates each other, and for valid reasons, I think, like just genuinely legitimate reasons that are irreconcilable. And we need to figure out a way to look at that, stare it in the face, acknowledge it, and then go, okay, but now let's keep going.
Yeah. I think that's a powerful concept to develop and explore because that's exactly what it is. Like, so going back to the Obama videos were like personal for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because as a millennial who, right when Obama got elected, was right when I was starting to like notice the walls were made of like spit and toilet paper, right?
Yeah.
Around the whole social structure that I had existed in. And then Obama gets elected. I'm like, no, hold up. Shit is gravy. This is everybody's walls are spit and toilet paper. I just have to, whatever. And so Obama gets elected, and that's so many of the black bourgeoisie. Like every black person I know, college educated parents, maybe multiple, HBCUs are such an interesting microcosm of black elitism that people, because it's insular, people don't understand or know about, but like it is. And so like, I have friends whose great grandparents are HBCU college graduates that come from a lineage of maybe not, like extreme wealth, but like they've never had to worry about even things I worried about. They never lived at Roaches. You know what I'm saying? And so like to them, yeah, the system is bad, but we make the best out of it. And that was like that's an easy state of mind to be in as an African American of relatively decent means. Because you're going to get pulled over by the police anyway, but at least I'm going to get pulled over in a nicer car. You know what I'm saying? Or go home if I'm lucky to a nicer house. But my point is, so I will shout out to Pascal. I don't know. He's a black socialist that runs the streets with different socialist podcasts. He had this spot on, I think, Sam Cedar of all places, where he broke down the like democratic control over black voting power to like basically control over the black version of the American dream, which we're still holding on to. And I say all that to say, feel free to like edit this down. Obama was like such an excellent opiate to keep that dream going. Yeah. Like, oh my God, I can't describe to you what it felt like when Obama first got elected as a black person with relatively decent means. And how like that, anybody that was on the edge was back in the fucking game after Obama was elected. And so as you get to the end of it though, you start to deconstruct how bad the presidency was, especially in the face of like what it was supposed to mean. And then that forces you to deconstruct everything as a, sorry, I got a fruit fly flying around. That forces you to deconstruct everything. So long story short is the point of those videos was to deconstruct this concept called Black excellence. I don't know if you watched it.
No, I did. Yeah.
And so Black excellence is the connective glue that keeps the Black moderate playing the game.
Yeah.
And like you will not have a leftist working class revolution just saying that changing things, not as in anything else. You will not have that without the Black working class.
Yeah.
But you will not get the Black working class until the Black moderate stops manipulating them into submission to the Democratic Party. You just won't. Yeah. And so my goal with that video was to put other Black people through what I had went through personally, which is Obama really kind of set everything back. And we need to process the fact that we wanted that, but it's not real, and then move further left to get activated on other things that are real. And in the middle of that, I had to deconstruct all this stuff, and I couldn't leave out the fact, also, low-key a global terrorist. You know what I'm saying? Low-key a global terrorist. I don't want to talk about that too much, but I don't want to leave that out. And so for some people, that was the only thing they heard.
Yeah.
And I have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And I love that mutually antagonistic thing. Like instead of me losing a specific goal that I'm uniquely positioned to accomplish, let me just take that L on behalf of the movement.
Yeah.
And so anybody that was put off, and I don't defend myself a ton when it's like real shit. So on behalf of anybody that was put off by, or to anybody that was put off by the somewhat minimalization or the maybe equivalatory language between global terrorist and, Black American dream, feel free to leave me alone in your discourse. Feel free to leave me out. But also let me do my thing over here. I think is a useful way to look at it.
Yeah, and I think the reason that I'm not like, one of the problems that I have with that formulation that I think about a lot is it only works if everybody involved is acting in good faith. Is
That's the other problem.
So it, like, for instance, like what you just said, right, where you're like, I'll take that L to make my point, but like I legitimately see why you would be angry with me, and like that takes a level of like maturity and like intellectual honesty to say that and then just be okay with that and sit with that discomfort and be okay with it. But not okay with it in a way that like you're giving yourself license to continually do the same thing over and over again.
Right.
And that's like that razor's edge of that, where like,
Yeah.
how do you even police that within your, maybe
Right.
police isn't the best word in this conversation, but
yeah.
how do you manage that within yourself, let alone other people? Like, it's just this ephemeral concept that I think maybe it's something to aspire to rather than say we have.
Because then you give license to, certain debate bros' persistent failure on addressing race effectively.
Yeah.
And then you have to consent to accountability. This is me consenting to accountability. Feel free to make your FD Signifier doesn't understand global politics video. I will share it. You know what I'm saying? a guy made a video talking about how I failed to effectively bring up autism in my manosphere videos. And like, it was the first time I watched something critical of me. I was like, fuck, got my ass. You know what I'm saying? Oh, this motherfucker got me dead to rights, because I sure didn't know that I was leaving out talking about autism because I didn't know how to do it effectively, even though I knew that's what I was talking about to an extent. And I was scared to talk about it incorrectly and derail the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
And so I shared that video because I was like, yo, y'all need to see this. This right here is what's missing. And like, please take that and like, do something with it. But like, that's because I'm operating in good faith, and like, good faith is hard to have and discern when it's also connected to clout, when it's connected to money. This is the best paying job I've ever had.
Yeah.
By a significant margin. And like, it's also a job that gives me esteem, and it lets me wake up on a Monday morning and talk to a homie for, an hour and a half, 2 hours without thinking about other things.
Yeah.
And like, that's like you said, it's a razor's edge. It's a thin line between clout chasing, recklessness, and self-reflexive, community cohesion.
Yeah. I mean, and that's just how I think the thing that I'm coming to terms with is that we're not going to have an answer. That maybe what I just described is just my own internal way of dealing with that contradiction. And there's not going to be a one size fits all answer to it, other than did you ever, do you ever get into sci-fi? Like, are you a sci-fi dude?
Iffy. My media consumption in general died when I became a dad. So like, I was such a media junkie: comics, video games, music, everything. And then like, as soon as I had kids, I just had to cut a lot of that out. And then now it doesn't even do much for me. But I have a pretty good. So what we got?
So the novel Dune that the movies are based on.
That was I was not nerdy enough when that was hot to like catch that. Plus those books are like thicker than my legs. So.
Yeah, they're real dense. And one of the reasons that they're so dense is they're basically, I don't even know how they make movies. Like, those books don't want to be movies at all. It's basically just like 800 pages of dudes talking about politics and then like tripping balls in a cave thinking about political power. And it's just, anyway, one of the overarching plot is that the main character is, spoiler, the villain of the story. You're supposed to see him as
he's
the
like
bad
an
guy.
Evil white savior, from what I'm told.
Yeah. But he's the POV character. And one of the things that he spends a lot of time doing is talking about his own relationship to the mythology that has sprung up around him and power that he has. And he has a quote.
Oh shit, he me for real.
Well, one of the quotes that he has is what was it? It's and it's something to the effect of, if you're going to have power, you have to be able to uncouple yourself from your own mythology and have like an internal sense of like irony and sarcasm and sardonicy about the relationship that you have to other people who view you as this mythological, powerful being. And if you can't do that, then even momentary greatness will destroy a person. And I think about that a lot in terms of this, right? Like, not to say we're like great, like capital G great men, but like if you have an audience, then you have a mythology, you have a brand.
Right.
And if you're not able to uncouple yourself from that in a way that lets you move independent of that and think about your brand as a separate thing from yourself, and like, how do I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Like, you need to be able to interact with that in a way that's meaningful, because if you're just sitting in a room smelling your own farts and buying your own bullshit, like you turn into some of these cats.
Yeah. I think that's something that happens in a lot of, like, especially these like college professors have the highest, or some research, right? But I remember reading something. College professors have one of the highest like work satisfactions of all professions, because that's what they do. They get to study the things they love the most. Everybody around them thinks they're the greatest thing ever, and they get paid well, and they don't have to work that hard, right? And they work hard in spurts. And I think that's kind of a way, partially from being an educator, when you're good at helping people, there's so much like room for building a cult of personality in your own head, and it's so, like, I struggle with it. I won't say I struggle with it too explicitly, because I feel I want to hold grace to myself that I'm doing a good job of it. It also helps that my wife is like not a fan of like half of my shit. It thinks most of you guys are lame. So like, it's awesome.
That's fair.
My wife hates CJ the X, and I'm like, "What, babe? You can't hate CJ. That's my homie." But
my girlfriend actually, to this day, has never listened to a single thing I've made, and she refuses to. She refuses to, because she's like, "Listen, baby, I love you, but I have dated musicians, and you have never been in the awkward position of dating somebody who plays you one of their songs that sucks, and I cannot find out that your podcast sucks. It will destroy it." She's like, "I'm listening. I'm refusing to listen to you because I love you and I don't want to change."
Yeah, that's real. That's useful. And that's exactly what you're talking about. It's separating self from persona. So like, FD Signifier is nobody's dad, but he's the internet's, wholesome uncle, right? And my wife is still a big fan overall, like, don't get me wrong, but she's not a LeftTube consumer. We're not having discourse around LeftTube. She might talk to me about my content. I bounce a lot of ideas off of her. My family back home thinks I'm shitty SJW. Like, it's really useful. Like, when I talk, or like when we pull up, fantasy football, we talk about the Bears. It's like, here go feet talk about the fucking, socialism again. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, yeah, it's like, oh no, it is me. I am full of shit. This is awesome. I needed this. That's one of the reasons why I do so much bullshit on Twitter now, because like, when I take Twitter seriously and people reinforce that, it feeds into that cycle of smelling your own farts. But if I talk about how hot She-Hulk is and people look at me like a weirdo, I'm like, yeah, I need that. I need some of that. I need that energy to keep me balanced. Especially as men, I think that's another thing, is like, to be a great man is something we're that's pushed on us. And so like, I just think pulling yourself apart from that is so useful and important. And when people don't do it, it's kind of obvious and it's harmful. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, in the best of times, it's obvious.
Yeah.
But if you get somebody who's really good at it, or I think in order to be really good at it, you have to actually not be conscious of what you're doing. Like, I think a lot of the people that do that, like, it's back to the whole kayfabe, like,
Right. Joss Whedon.
Yeah. Yeah, like you don't know that you're playing a caricature of yourself. And that's, I think, one of the most psychologically destructive things that a person can do. And it's what a lot of content creators wind up doing, for better or for worse. And like, I don't know. I try to have admittedly, I only have like 1,200 followers right now. So like,
Right.
this isn't an issue for me. But like it, I'm working on trying to get a different job, and like I'm trying to like have some distance, and like ultimately my long-term plan is, if I can get enough money, and let's just call it what it is, clout, together off of this, I want to get into like the production side and like try to like I ultimately want to like push people to the surface that otherwise wouldn't have, like, do what I do with this podcast of like interviewing different people that I like, but like trying to like
Technical.
push money into it, or if I can get enough money together, like I'll tell you what my dream job is. My dream job is to get enough money together that I can put enough money into like a mutual fund that I can just live off the interest. I don't need a whole lot of money. I just want enough to like live, the kind of lifestyle I currently have, and then take every bit of money that I get and literally just scroll through Twitter under the mutual aid hashtag and just drop like 10 G's like every day on people. Because I have this theory that like people are capable of doing shit, that if you give the streets resources, they will produce what they need themselves. That's a theory.
Yeah.
We've never really had that on the left.
Yeah.
Like the right has money and power, we don't. So we've never been able to test that. And I think we should. I think we should just saturate the people that are making moves with money.
Yeah. There's a lot of research to say that that's a reasonable expectation, is that if you give people resources. Yeah. I just think that's a noble goal, and one I hope that everybody is participating in. Like, people will send me like GoFundMe's and I don't check them that hard. I just put them out there. Yeah. It's like, if you're a scammer, that's on you. Like, it's not my scam. So like, I'm not going to expose people to scams if I knowingly know that. But like, the reality is the shit is going to happen regardless. I would rather facilitate more people getting more and not worry about who isn't doing right by money. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's something that we should, like, I'm an evidence guy, right? Like I'm an empiricist.
Right.
We have like the fundamental theory behind all of leftism is that people are capable of self-organizing in a way that's in their interest. The reason that they haven't is because they haven't had access to information. That's being corrected for, hopefully, by the kind of stuff that we've just spent an hour and a half talking about. And then the other side of that is, well, now you have the information. Do you have the resources? And we don't, because it's not in capital's interest to fund those people.
Right.
So,
or to fund them in an explicit way that reinforces the system.
So I think it's worth doing just for data gathering purposes, right? If like throwing money at leftist orgs doesn't do anything, we probably need to revisit some of our founding theories. So definitely. That's, what do you, if we talk about the resource thing, right? But like education wise, like how do you view education as a way of like helping people grow?
So there's like education and there's learning. And like, so education is systemic, and it's very much born out of like Western traditions of I am depositing knowledge into you. Which is, we're all comfortable with that. And it's effective in many a way. but I don't give it a lot of credence in a modern in the way I think about the world now, because it's very prone to managing access to power.
Hmm.
And then learning is experiential, communal, practical, relevant, right? Which is why, like, I'm never gonna, like, I constantly pull from my education, from my scholarly, my degrees and whatnot. I constantly pull from that in my content, but I hesitate to cite too often
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want to create. I'm trying to get better at this. In fact, I don't want to create so many barriers between new information and the need to have proper citations around stuff. And that's kind of why, like, I call myself an entertainer. That I'm edutainment. I sit up here and I talk for a while, and I hope that it creates the desire for learning, as opposed to explicitly repeating things I've said, which is hard because I've now become a clout,
Mm-hmm.
a clout demon content creator. But overall, yeah, I think, especially on the left, we need to be less about education and more about learning. I think doing that will make us more community based. It'll be a way to more easily pull in and call in working class, regular people who don't have the time, energy, student loan money to go to school and have somebody read Marx with them for 4 years.
Yeah.
And that's kind of I think one of the barriers of the online left is, we should still have the scholars, right? We should still have one dime.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? We should still have St. Andrew. But we shouldn't only have one dime in St. Andrew.
Yeah.
And so, like, we need people to translate that, pragmatism, theory into praxis.
No, I agree completely. I think that's ultimately, I think hopefully that's what this is, right? Is distilling, and I do actually just want to say, like, I really do like your content a lot.
Thank you.
I think the way that you approach that, like, holistic, like, just, you're very good at taking these really big ideas and distilling them down into a way that is accessible, and also having way more empathy for the people you're talking about than I ever could muster. I think that's very commendable. I really, really like it.
That comes from teaching, man. When you try to teach a bunch of hormonal, uninterested teenagers Shakespeare, like, it's hormonal, uninterested, and impoverished in many cases. Like, you learn a different level of patience. Because, like, the world is shitty to everybody, but nobody's shitty on purpose, is my theory.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and so, like, I operate that when I'm exploring ideas. Like, this person is shitty. Why? And sometimes that helps distill the things down.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just trying to figure out where I'm going to cut that. So
sorry.
No worries. So yeah, I think, fuck it. We'll just, we cut some shit out that we were doing a promo for FD's next video, and we had to cut some shit out because it's too dope to put on my show.
Too dope to put on. I gotta have first access to it.
So
new video coming out in October 17th called "The Right Can't Fuck."
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So if you're listening to that, that's what that sloppy edit was. Is I couldn't figure out a good way to transition off of just the raw dopeness of what this man just said to me is too much, and it fucked up the recording. So I think that's probably just a good spot to end it on, man. It's been great talking to you.
Yeah, dope, man. This is fun. I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to most of the response. Because we dug in on a lot of areas, and we the bravery of putting out unfiltered, off the top of the dome content. I will never understand it. Because, like, extemporaneous speaking, I'm good at it, but I'm also, like, horrible at self-editing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like this, Yeah, I edit these pretty thoroughly so that it comes across as like the best version of us.
Awesome.
Which
Feel free to
like
cut a third of everything I said.
I usually don't cut out much. But like there's like I tend to like I cut for stuff that I'm like I know that's just going to be a word that somebody's going to hone in on and not like pay attention to the point, and just like shit, like the kind of stuff that you say off the cuff in a live stream that everybody that derails the comment section. I tend to cut that shit just because I want this to be the best version of the conversation we have, and I want people to actually engage with what you're saying and what I'm saying, and not. I don't want to give them opportunities for that. So like I cut shit and I do it intentionally. And I always give my guests an opportunity to say if they want to cut stuff too. So that's yeah, I'll be sure to cut that out too. FD just dropped another amazing dope preview for the video that's coming out, and that's why we had to do another cut because this man doesn't know when to stop.
I'm just full of dope shit. I'm just Dylon right now. It's just hard. I'm warmed up. We can go for another 2 hours.
Oh no, I would love to, but I got to piss so bad. I do this in every interview. I drink like a gallon of coffee, and then like by the hour and a half mark, I'm like, all right, we either going to have to commit to like 4 hours and take a break, or we got to cut it. So it's a good way to keep me on track.
No, that's dope.
All right, FD, do you want to like plug your pluggables and shit? And like,
follow me on all the socials. Some spelling of FD Signifier, because I did not plan out being a content creator that well. So like I spelled it differently a lot of different ways. All my most main content is on YouTube at f.d.signifier. I should pop up if you search that. Follow me more on Instagram for family stuff. I'm trying to build up one part of the whole like normalizing leftist stuff is me making like a family content. Also, people like that from me. They want that from me. And I'm like, it would be dope if I could just be a leftist dad grilling ribs once a month. And like people can understand you don't have to, not there's anything wrong with that, but you don't have to live some like extreme, not extreme. You get one point. I want to pull in regular fuckers to say, pull in the normies. Hey, you don't have to lose beef.
You can be a grill dad. You don't have to be Fred Hampton screaming about "I am a revolutionary."
Right. You don't have to do that. And maybe we can get ethically made beef, right?
Yeah.
It'll be healthier for you. It'll taste better, but you can still eat it. You don't have to be a vegan, stuff like that. So I'm doing more family oriented stuff on Instagram. And, next video should drop on October 17th.
All right. Well, FD, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. It's been a blast.
Dope. Thank you for having me. Hope this does well, and hope that welcome to monetization. You're one step closer to selling out.
Hey there, folks. Mark Edwards again, and I just wanted to say thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this show, then please consider supporting me directly. You can do so by becoming a patron, one of these people. I think this is the right direction now. I'm getting to where I know where that is. You can become one of these people and give me monthly donations to help keep all the bisexual lighting on. If you can't contribute monthly, but you still want to throw some cash my way, my digital tin can is always open at the links above for Venmo, Coffee, PayPal. All of that, including Patreon, is at UltravioletPod. If you cannot support me directly, totally get it. I've been there. I understand. I don't want your money if you can't part with it. But you can still support the show. You can like and subscribe on YouTube, get the little bell notification so you always know when I have an episode that comes out, because the algorithm doesn't particularly like my content. So that's very helpful. You can also give it 5 stars on iTunes, on Spotify. I don't even know if they have a voting thing, but you can certainly subscribe to me on there, and that boosts it in the algorithm. Engage with this wherever you're able to. Leave a comment, upvote, all the things, and that really helps me get this stuff out to other people. And ultimately that helps me, and I really appreciate it. If you would like to follow me on social media, I am on Twitter at UltravioletPod, where I am a cringe lord and post just really bad takes, and you can participate in that, and that would be wonderful. I'm also on Instagram, which I'm currently in the process of turning into a memorial for my recently passed cat, Harvey. RIP to a real one. So if that's what you're into, then subscribe to me there. That's pretty much it. As always, be sure and subscribe to my guest, subscribe to FD's Patreon, and also go into the down there parts in the comments section in the show notes and check out all the people that we mentioned, and be sure and subscribe to their content as well. As stated in the interview and numerous other interviews that I've done, one of my goals with this show is to lift up other content creators to spread left-wing stuff everywhere. And you can help me do that by subscribing to the people that we talk about and that I link to in the show notes. And I would consider it a personal favor. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.